Hi, all. Welcome to our podcast, Be Mindful, with me, your host, Prajna. Today, we have Upasika Nisha with us. She is based in Thailand, a Buddhist follower, and has practiced mindfulness for many years. Now, she is engaged in spreading knowledge about mindfulness and Vipassana. In today's episode, we're going to start with some basics about mindfulness and how to practice it. So, Anisha, tell us about what mindfulness is. Before this, I would like to just share that I have been practicing mindfulness with Nisha since past 2 years, and it's been such a great experience. And I really wanted all of you know to get to know more about mindfulness. So that's why, Nisha, so tell us about what mindfulness is and how to practice it.
Hi, Prajna. Mindfulness is a practice where you become aware of the present moment. And because in our daily life, we keep moving forward, and with the hustle bustle of life and the rapid change of everything, the work life, we tend to forget to be in the present moment. So that is why we need to practice that.
Wow, that was interesting, Nisha. So, the most of the general thing is that many people in mindfulness, they always gives a lot of emphasis to present moment. So, why we have to practice to be in the present?
Yeah, because present moment is what we've got. The past is gone and the future has not come yet. What we've got is the present, and that is the reality.
Oh, yes, I do remember when I spoke to you, you always asked me to observe and to be in the present moment. So, could you share like what it is for you to be in the present moment? What being in the present moment means to you?
Yeah, sure. Being in the present is like being 100% devoted to the here and now. It's like being here and now, moment by moment. And for that, you need to practice, because we are so used to be in the future or the past, and we always, forget that we need to live. And living, for me, it's to be in the present.
Wow. That's something, that's something I remember from my practice also, where, I tried so hard in the beginning to be in the present moment, and I tried so hard to observe my thoughts. But, I have to tell you that I was not getting any thoughts. So is it a very natural for someone, for the beginner, to not having any thoughts when they are told to observe the thoughts? And why does it happen?
Actually, there should be some thoughts, like the mind cannot go without having no thought, unless you're in the meditative state, deep meditation, then you can control it. But in the mindfulness practice, we don't want to control anything. We just want to observe the reality, which is in the present moment. So we just want to observe the present moment. We don't want to control the present moment the way we want it to be, because that leads to suffering. Why it leads to suffering? Because if, Prashna, you think whenever you are suffering, think about it, like what would be the reason, like what is the reason for you to suffer? Just think about it for a moment.
It's painful for me if I have to suffer. It's painful, it's unpleasant sensations, feelings, emotions.
No, I mean the reason, like the reason why you would suffer.
Normally, we think that, my suffering is because of like someone else's mistake, you know, and we tend to blame either our circumstances, either people, either situations for my suffering, for our own suffering. So that's a very common concept of like, how suffering arises because, someone has not done something which I wanted that person to do. When I have huge expectations from someone, and if my expectations are not fulfilled, then, I suffer. then we suffer generally. This is the common concept of people. So yeah, so you were sharing something about suffering. How does it, for me, as a basic concept of suffering is that it might arises from someone else. It might arises from the outer world.
Yeah, which is quite true, but the real reason for suffering, once you practice, you'll get to know this, but I'm just gonna share that the reason for suffering is if you wanting to change the reality to be something that is not. Like, for example, you have fought with your friend and you're angry, right? So the reality is you're angry. That is the reality. But then you want to change something that it's not. Like, you want to change the reality. You want to anger to vanish, right? So that is the reason for your suffering. You don't want something is the reason for suffering. Or you want something more than what you have. So non-acceptance of the present moment is the real cause of suffering. Do you agree on this?
I do completely agree on this. So then after the practice of mindfulness, I really have come to know this, that the resistance, sometimes we try to outplay the reality, and that causes us suffering. When we cannot accept the thing as they are, when we cannot accept the reality as they are, then it brings suffering to us. So that's why we suffer. So now mindfulness could be a great tool to alleviate the suffering. So would you like to tell us more about like how mindfulness can be a tool to alleviate suffering or to lessen our suffering?
Yeah. As I said before, that we tend to forget to live in the present moment, right? And then the tool is to practice being in the present. So to understand the nature of life, to understand that if we go and change what it is, that will lead to suffering. If we don't accept the present as it is, that could lead to suffering. So in order to understand that, you need to understand what is the present moment. You need to know what is there, right now. That is why it's important to practice mindfulness, because if you don't know what is there in the present, you cannot live with it. So you need to know, okay, right now I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling like I want to throw up, or I feel like my hand is aching, my head is aching, or whatever that is going through in your mind and body. You just need to observe. That is called the practice of mindfulness. So yeah, that is the basic how to start to observe through your senses. Senses in the sense, your sense of sight, your hearing, the smell, the touch, and the taste. The moment you smell something, you get the feeling of that, right? Like, oh, this is bad smell or it's good smell. You get some feeling out of it. So that is what you need to observe through these senses. Yeah, that's how you start.
Wow, those were some such great valid points. And something very interesting that you pointed out is about controlling the present moment. So, what do we understand by controlling the present moment? Is it like, I'm getting angry and I should not be, or I should control my anger? Or so, what it is like to control the present moment?
Yeah, normally what we do is we tend to control our emotions, or in the inner world we have thoughts, emotions, and other things. We don't accept ourselves enough to observe them quietly, but we tend to dismiss the thought, dismiss the emotion, whatever that we've got, and that doesn't help in knowing the reality at all, because reality is the reality. So we don't have to change it. By changing the reality, it becomes suffering. For example, right now I'm angry. I don't want to be angry. Just the word I don't want to be angry, that is suffering. But you don't know it's suffering, but because you haven't observed yourself enough to know that. But behind the scene, it is suffering. You are suffering behind the scene because you want to push that out. Either you want to push something out or you want something in. For example, you want to feel good all the time. Human beings, we want to feel good all the time. So we tend to find things to do so that we feel good. And we tend to push emotions or thought out so that we feel good, right? So these two things that we do can cause suffering.
Wow.
And
So overall, mindfulness is, sorry, you have not finished, but I just wanted to,
it's okay.
share this thing that mindfulness is not about dismissing the emotions, but rather letting it arise and to observe it and to let it go,
Yeah,
so
that's
that
right.
it won't, so that the emotions won't, get to suffering, so that emotions does not change to suffering.
Yeah, it passes by without us witnessing those emotions. And whatever we don't witness, that will be pushed behind. But somewhere is there. Somewhere there is anger about that thing that was done to you or you did. So somewhere it's not gone completely. It's like a residual of, anger. And then one day it's gonna blast somehow. So if you observe right there and then that emotion and you witness that, it's gonna go away completely. And then it comes again. Don't worry that one time, if you observe one time, it's gonna go away forever. Nothing is forever. So it's gonna come again. If you're, like an angry person, you'll be angry like 100,000 times until you realize, like, you get that wisdom from this practice. And then whenever the anger arises, it's gonna vanish by itself. So that's the magic that's gonna happen with this practice. Yeah.
Wow, that was so beautiful explanation of what mindfulness is. And really, as a mindfulness practitioner myself, I can feel that. I can feel the beauty in the word mindfulness itself. It's all about like accepting the reality, and that's wonderful. So, many people, they have this tendency of thinking that mindfulness needs a lot of their time, and mindfulness is very time consuming. It needs a lot of effort. So, would you like to share something about, like, is it so? Is it time consuming, or is it, do we need to put a lot of effort to this, or once we tend to be like mindful about the things, we may not be able to get back to our regular world, as these are misconceptions, obviously. How to practice it, like, do we need to practice it like 24 hours as a beginner, someone who wants to start practicing mindfulness and be aware about what's going inside them, and to be in the present moment?
It depends. Like for me, I combined the practice into my daily life. So I didn't have to sit 2 hours per day like that. I just wake up in the morning and then start being mindful. And then during the day, while I'm working, I am aware of what I'm doing. If I'm driving, I'm aware of my body and my thoughts, my feeling. Throughout the day, I try to practice. So that way, if you can do it, that is the best way to do, because you don't have to, take out like extra time out from your work life or anything. You just combine the practice into your daily life, and then there's no time actually for that. Like every time is the time for the practice. So when you go to the bathroom in the morning, that is the time. You can be aware of your body moving, your body movement as well. Some people cannot, they are not able to observe the thought. So that's not a problem. You can observe your body as well. So if you can do both, that is the best. So yeah. So in the morning, if you wake up, breathe, you can observe your breathing as well. We don't even know if we wake up and what we do, right? Like it's like an autopilot all the time. Like we are not aware that first thing in the morning, there is the tendency to pick up your cell phone or check if you've got messages. It's just autopilot all the time. So what we do is, starting in the morning, just breathe, and then, be aware of your body. Be aware what you're doing. Be aware of your footsteps. Be aware while you are brushing your teeth. Be aware of your thought while you're brushing the teeth.
Wow, mindfulness indeed is such a great practice because, as you have said, and as I have experienced myself, that we have all the tools within us to practice mindfulness. We need not to seek it outside, it is just within us, and we just need that awareness. So, our breath, as you said, breath is the greatest anchor to center ourselves, to bring back us to the present moment. If sometimes we tend to stray away from because of our thoughts and everything that's going in around us. So yeah, so mindfulness is such a gentle, such an easy practice. I would say it easy because once you start practicing it, it gets easier, each passing day. As a practitioner myself, I can say this. What do you think, Nisha? So in today's shall we wrap up today's episode with this knowledge of mindfulness?
Yeah, sure. We can continue later on. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Anisha, for spreading this knowledge with us. So this is the wrap of our today's episode. I hope all our listeners have enjoyed and learned from this episode as much as we did. So we will see you again in next episode. Till then, be mindful.